Okay, thanks for joining. Glad to be here. Hope you are too. We don't have a whole lot of numbers that tune in, but what we do have is we have unity, spirit, and unity. And we put that to good use. Let's go in. We're going to start off in Romans 9:6, where it says, not all Israel is Israel. And then in 9:8 it says, Paul comes up with the rejoinder, if you will, and he says that these are those of the flesh. These are not the children of God, but these are those of the promise are counted for the seed. Now those are strong words, because he just disengaged his activities from a theological standpoint from what he left, and that was the physical or physicality of the construct. Not trying to use big words, but the paradigm that he left had more to do with the physical than it had to do with the spiritual. It was more for the practicality of it and for the pragmatic symbolism that it represented, instead of actively seeking out the Spirit of the living God. And there's a big difference, because they only thought that they would seek out the Spirit of God in all the sacrifices that they made. That's why the rebuilding of the temple is a moot point, because when that curtain was torn in two, God left the premises. God left the house. He left the temple. Never going to come back. That ship has sailed. And what Paul does is he goes into more depth on this. And if we look over to, this is Romans 9:27, and he says, Isaiah also crieth concerning Israel, though the number of, listen to this, though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea. This is metaphor coming at us. Though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved. That's out of Isaiah 10:22-23. And it's actually a throwback. It's got some linkage and parallel to what it says in Zechariah 13:8-9, where God says, behold, in all the land, that he will cut off two parts, and they shall die, but that third part, that he will bring through the fire, and try them, as gold and silver is tried and refined. That says it all right there. So even in the things are really on a fast track right now for world events, that in the coming months, we're going to see a lot of famine. We're going to see outrageous prices. We're going to see fertilizer that dries up, and we can't get the restock for it. Oil, especially diesel, is going to go through the roof. All these things are coming to a vortex, to a culmination of events. Either we're going to be prepared to go through that fire, which God will bring through, not escape from, but God will bring through to try that metaphoric third part and refine them as gold and silver. So let's go over to Galatians 3:16 after a sip of coffee here, where it says, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made, because we just got done talking about the promise in Romans 9:8. So it says here, again, Galatians 3:16, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. Okay. He saith not, and to seeds. He saith not, and to seeds. What this is saying is that even though the children are as the sand of the sea, in other words, the seeds, in other words, because of their racial supposed maintenance of their birthright, which is gone, never to return, even though the so-called nation returned, but their birthright's never coming back. That's gone. And Christ saved, not to get off on that, Christ saved the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So did he do it? Did he save the lost sheep of the house of Israel? Did he combine those two sticks of Ezekiel 37? He sure did. And at Pentecost, then you had the Valley of Dry Bones, which preceded the two sticks of Ezekiel, that the Lord Jesus Christ combined into one stick. So it says here, and to seeds as of many, but as of one. And this is where Paul closes the loop on it. And to thy seed, which is Christ. That says a lot right there. And also, we'll kind of wrap it up here, where it says in Galatians 4:23, but he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh. We're talking about that metaphoric paradigm of the physicality of the many seeds right here. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise. More edification on that promise, which things are an allegory. In other words, a metaphor. Metaphor is kind of a misnomer because it's a metaphor of itself. And what it means is a rebirthing process. Metaphore actually means the birthing canal. If you do the etymology on the word and all that, the birthing canal or the woman's matrix. This is incredible stuff. And this is why if a person is not born again, they're just not going to see it. They're not going to get a hold of it. It won't be given them. They will not have the eyes to see or the ears to hear. Which things are an allegory, for there are the two covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. And then dropping down to verse 27. For it is written, rejoice, thou barren that bearest not, break forth and cry, thou that travaileth not, for the desolate has ramifications of Daniel 9:27, when it talks about the abomination of the desolations and all that sort of thing, which also harkens also over to Matthew 24, for that matter. For the desolate hath many more children. Now this is interesting. This opens up new doors of understanding, because now we're talking about the desolate hath many more children. This equates and compares the desolate with the many more children that are of the many seeds, if you want to look at it like that, that still are against, in place of, or diminishing the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross. Who does that? Who's the false prophet for that? There's many. Many antichrists have gone out, and the collective body of the false prophet who heralds that image of the beast, giving life, pneuma, etymology-wise, chapter 13 of Revelation, all the way at the end of the chapter. This interplays into that very concept. For the desolate hath many more children than she which hath an husband. So we're talking about the proper criticality of the marriage, of the proper format that the Lord's talking about. Dropping down to verse 29, but as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the Spirit, so it is now. Now what was Paul? He was the self-appointed by the Lord apostle, in this case, to the Gentiles. But those Christians are of the same promise that it talks about in Romans 9:8. Good stuff. Because we're talking about the lineage, the inheritance, and the spiritual identification that this all encompasses, in other words. And dropping down to verse 31, we'll wrap it up right now. So then, brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free. Now, where's that free? It's in heavenly places. We're seated in heavenly places with the Lord. And it's the Jerusalem as of above, not below. Because a lot of people get stuck in that mire, that mud, and they don't understand that in order to be born again, they have to see things from a spiritual perspective. That's where the remnant come in, because they have that eyesight that they can see those things and see how all of these predictions and prophecies and everything are all meshed together into one coherent message of Israel being born again at the cross. This is great stuff. This is eternal stuff. This is like, final thought. It's like being in that ark, talking about covenants, that we're protected, which also is reasoned with the admonition in Zechariah 13:8-9, about the third part going through the fire, and shall be tested and tried as gold and silver. There we go. A few things to think about and pray about. If you're remnant, stay remnant. Once remnant, had a sister bring this up the other day. Beautiful way to put it. Once remnant, always remnant. We got nowhere to go. We are right where we need to be in that family, that seamless robe of Israel being born again. Because you're either going to be part of the replacement Christianity, vis-a-vis, via Roman Catholicism, or you're going to be part of the dual covenant, where, oh yeah, they're saved under the old covenant, the 6-point star people, and the Christians are saved under the new covenant. Well, obviously, they don't understand that Jesus Christ brought those two houses together of Israel, also with the consolidation of all the Gentiles into who is a Jew. Romans 2:28 and 29. There we go. If you're remnant, stay remnant. You're doing a great job. I love you guys. Love you guys a lot. We'll talk soon.